I've started recording. So I was the right here in the last class since the layers part. So you can create a layers that contains a part of an image, or if you want an effect that can be built on the top of the layers to create the final image, right? Like for example, you can use these layers so that you can move your elements, you can edit your elements independently without you want to affect the others of them. So layers is like basically many layers combined together to form an image, or you can even say that a layer is basically a surface onto which an image or object is placed. Each object is placed on a separate layer, and they are like stacked on top of each other as they are placed on different pieces of paper. So on the right hand side, you can actually see that you have an example of a layer, and you can create the layers as well. How can you do that? I'm going to explain you right now. So if you are using an illustrator, you can just go onto this new tab, and you can select RGB, you can select 72 because your file size won't be much higher, and select create. And just after that, you are going to go on to this file tab, and you are going to open this layers panel. Now, right here, you have this layer panel opened. And if you want to create here a new layer, you are going to click this, create a new layer. If you want to delete this layer, you can delete this. If I'm going to click it a lot of time, you can see that you are actually creating a lot of layers. So you can also delete them. So layers basically means, like, for example, if I'm drawing here, this is a square, so this is another square, this is another square, this is another square, this is another square. So what you can see that if I just place each and every square on top of that like this, so at some point it would be difficult for me to select the square that is listed right here. So it is rather easy for me in selecting this because when I have this a layer panel, so what I can do is that I can select the first square that I created like this by clicking it right here and dragging it to a different place. I can even do that by clicking right here and dragging it to the different place. So this is the reason that if things become just stacked up, you don't need to get very. You can select that individual layer and you can move that item here and there. This is for your Illustrator part. But if you are using a Photoshop, so the procedure is much simpler. But the only difference is that when you are working with layers in Adobe Illustrator, so if you are making new shapes, they are automatically created with new rails. For example, if I was working with rectangle, you can see that if I'm making more numbers of shapes with the layer panel on the right hand side, it is automatically increasing. I can even use this ellipse right here, or right here. So this is automatically increasing. So in the end, you can either delete them or you can move them to different layers. But when it comes to a Photoshop, this is your layer panel right here. So if I'm going to create a circle right here like this, so you can see a new ellipse is added right here. Now, if I'm creating another shape, another ellipse is being added right here. So you can basically work on this and you can check that how many the number of items you are adding. It is basically creating a new layer. But sometimes there are areas where your new layer is not created. So just in areas where you want your each layer to be created out specifically. So what you have to do is that you need to create a new layer from right here. So you can even do that right here as well. And it goes like this. So you can add layers, you can delete them, you can play with them, and that's how it all works into with a Photoshop and into an Illustrator. So layers are basically a surface onto which an image or object is placed, and each object is placed on a separate layer and they are stacked on top of each other as like they are different pieces of images together and they are combined to form an image. So do you have any queries still here? One more important thing that we can see that, like, for example, if you can see that I have different layers, and if certainly I want this yellow color to be on top of any layer, so simply I can click that. When I'm going to click on that, it is going to highlight me this one right here. So I can basically drag this layer up. I can basically drag this layer down as well. So you also have the option of dragging layers up and down to the objects as well. Like for example, if this is a yellow color and this is a red color, so you can see that this yellow is on the top of that. But similarly, if you want this yellow color to be below the red, so you can simply drag and drop it like this. So their position is going to be changed. Same thing happens when you are working with into an illustrate into Photoshop as well. You can crop them, or like for example, if you have two object shapes right here and they are right like this, and they basically have a different color. So just in case if you want to play with these layers, you can change their positional value. You can either bring them up or you can either bring them down. So this is pretty much it for your layers. You can even arrange your layers into any way. Like for example, if you want the headlines or headline, oh, I mean, if you want the bolder lines to be the outline of your objects to be at first area, so you can play with them. So this is as far as your layers area is concerned. Other than that, I have another important tool that is right here, that is to be known as a transform tool. So this is the next tool that we are going to discuss right here into our Photoshop and Illustrator. And transform tool is basically used to change the size, the orientation, rotation, and skewing of an item or something. Like for example, you can change the size of that. You can rotate the size of that. You can skew an item. So to transform an item, you first of all need to select a layer, and then you need to change the parts of that how much you want to change it. Like for example, a lasso, a magic wand tool, or you can even use rectangle selection tool as well. I will be discussing with you these tools as well. I have here a rectangle selection tool, I have a lasso tool, I have a magic tool. So first of all, if I am right here, if I want to transform any object, for example, this is my circle. If I want to transform this object either into a larger size or either into a smaller or a bigger size, I'm going to press the Control and T tab onto my keyboard, right? Like this. I'm going to press the Control and T tab onto my keyboard, which is going to now change the orientation of this object. I can make it like this. I can make it like this, or I can even change it right like this. This is like you are basically changing the orientation of your object. You can even do that by going into your editing options and by going on to free transform tool. The shortcut to open this is Control plus T. This is the way that you can move this object right, like here and there. You can increase the size of that. You can also decrease the size of that as well. Similarly, when it comes to an Adobe Illustrator, what you can do that you are just going to simply click on that, and for changing the size of that, you are going to press the Control key on your keyboard. So you can see that basically you can change the size of that. But if you want the size to be in proportion, with proportion means that it should be in an equal form, right? Like it does not have to be too much small into a proportion. If it has to maintain a proportion, you need to use the shift key along with that. So you can see that now it is actually increasing into a proportion. But if I leave the shift key, then it is going to be something like this, which means that it is not into any proportion. So this is so far for your transform tool, and the tools that you have given are lasso, magic wand tool, and rectangle selection tool. So first of all, uh, now let me also show you the examples of that. Now, it says that rectangular selection tool. Your rectangle selection tool is right here. If you are going to click here, you can see the shortcut to go for this is you have to press the M key onto your keyboard. And with the help of this basically creates a selection onto your image. So you can create a selection. You can furthermore amend with that. This is used for selecting an area or for selecting anything. For example, you can basically uh, select this object right here, and you can delete this part of this image, right? Like this. You can even select this as well. You can delete it as well, like this. So this is the example of your rectangular selection tool. Other than that, what is mentioned into your book is basically magic wand tool. A magic wand tool is right here. If I'm going to hold my click onto that, it is going to give you two options, that is a quick selection tool and that is a magic wand tool. So if I'm going to use this a magic wand tool and I'm going to click on that, it is automatically going to select all of the area that is right here. So you can see that this is a magic wand tool, but magic wand tool is only used when you want to select a larger number of area that has to be precise. But sometimes it selects the it selects the wrong part as well. So just in case we will be needing to use this selection area, that is a quick selectional tool. Now, with the help of quick selectional tool, you can select the objects as per your choice. For example, only this. And just in case if you have any object accidentally selected, so you can select the minus point right here and you can minimize that. This is the three areas: lasso, magic wand, and rectangular selection tool. Lasso, for the lasso tool, what you need to do is that you need to click right here, this rope. This rope is basically to be known as a lasso tool. And for this, it basically creates a selection like this, like I'm making it with the help of a click. So this is the lasso tool. This is an example of a rope like something that helps you with your selection. Other than that, you have the scale and resize option. Scale and resize option, we have done that. You can increase the size of an object, you can scale it down. We have also discussed the moving objects as well. For example, if I want to move this object, so I'm just going to click right here. I can even press the transform tool. I can move it right here and there. I can make it smaller. I can make it larger. So other than that, the other two options that are given here is flipping. So for example, if let me take another shape right here, because it is not going to show you that if it is flipped or not. So for example, if right here I have, I'm basically using a line tool, and with the help of a line tool, I've created three lines, but just a moment. For example, I'm writing here a text or something. The text is Sir Wamiq Akram. So along with this text, if you want to flip it, or if you want to flip any object, you are going to press Ctrl T onto your keyboard. You are going to right click, and you can see that when you are going to right click, it is giving you several options. You can play with that. You can scale it, you can rotate it, you can skew it, you can wrap it. For example, if I want to flip it horizontally, I'm going to click here, and you can see that it has flipped horizontally. Control Z for undo. If you want to flip it vertically, it is going to be flipped like this. So this is how you can flip it. Other than that, you can share and skew as well. So again, free transform tool, control and tree, you can skew it as well. And when I'm going to click on the skew part, you can see that now I can basically skew this the way I want. I'm just going to select any part of that and I'm going to select, and I can skew it as well. Other than your skewing, you can rotate it as well. You can rotate it as well, right? Like this. And the next area into your book is regarding the number of layers, right? Like for example, if this is the name of something, and I have some shapes right here as well. For example, this is the shape, this is another shape, this is another shape. So I just want to tell you that when you are working with a larger number of layers, your workspace actually gets too much congested. To solve that, you can basically create a group of layers. For example, these are all my shapes. So I'm going to press the shift key onto my keyboard and I'm going to select the all of them. Just by selecting all of them, then I'm going to click right here, which means create a new group. And I'm going to click here. Now I can name this as my shape. So if I'm going to open it, you can see that it has all of your shapes right here. Similarly, I can also give it a new group by clicking it right here, like creating a new group and naming it as my name. So this is for your grouping as well. So you can group them. You can add any layer into a group, right? Like this. You can also do that by going into layer panel, I'll let you know the other way as well, but I have the option right here as well. So you can basically extract them and you can basically unextract them as well. This is this part of your book that you can group them as well. So when creating an image, you can have multiple items like objects or shapes grouped together. So you can so you do not have to move them individually. You can just group them all together and you can merge those items. So it would be quite easy for you if you create those groups. You can group more number of objects like 5 or 6 as well. And sometimes if you have yes, we can do. It's totally up to us. Sometimes if you have a larger number of layers and you might feel like, oh, I do not need these layers more than that. So what you can also do is that you can right click right here and you can click on merge layers or flatten layers. So what it is going to do is it is going to merge all of your layers into a one layer. So is it clear to you? Any queries so far?